Hello. Hi, Mariana. Welcome. Nice to see you again and have you with us today.
Hello. Hello, everybody, and thank you for this invitation.
Καλησπέρα και σε όσους μας βλέπουν από το Facebook. Hello to everybody watching the live stream on Facebook. This is the fifth meeting of Radical Voices, Radical Actions, a series of talks where we invite cultural workers from abroad to share with us specific ideas or actions that suggest bold shifts in cultural policies, and social organization. And tonight we have with us Marijana Cvetkovic from Belgrade, from Serbia, neighbor, who is going to talk to us about a really admirable initiative, the creation of the Cultural Center magazine, which is an artist-led cultural center that runs already since 2007. So for the last 13, 14 years, it's really admirable. And we look forward to hear more about how you did it. And maybe we start with this. What is a magazine? When was it created? By whom and how?
And just before we start, to remind everyone that you can join our discussion and share your questions by writing your questions at the comment section under the Facebook Live video. So, όποιος θέλει μπορεί να συμμετάσχει στη συζήτησή μας γράφοντας τις ερωτήσεις του στα σχόλια στη σελίδα του Facebook. Thank you, Marijana.
Thank you. So while I will be speaking, I think that it would be interesting to also share some photos so that people know what we are talking about. So I will share this series of photos that you can get the impression of the space I'm talking about. So magazine, the Cultural Center in Belgrade, the Independent Cultural Center, actually was created formally in 2007 as the result of an initiative of the independent scene of Belgrade then to open a space which would respond to the growing needs of the growing independent scene in that time. The independent scene meaning all those organizations, artists, initiatives that were very active in the field of mostly contemporary arts after the political change in 2000, and that were bringing in different ways new artistic and cultural practices to the cultural scene of Serbia, but that in the same time didn't have any institutional or even physical space to work, to present their work, and to communicate their work with the audiences. So in a quite successful and quite unusually successful dialogue with the then city authorities, we came up with this space in the central Belgrade, but in one very specific area of the city, which is central by its position, but totally marginalized by its function. It was the place, and it was then the place completely abandoned by any content other than small repair shops, some warehouses, and some residential buildings, all other kinds of services and content wasn't there. And the place that we found together with the representatives of the city used to be the book warehouse. So it was quite closed space that nobody could use for any other specific use, like it wasn't really good for anything that would be commercial, let's say. So it was the perfect place that would be given to the artists to use it, not only to communicate their works and their activities to the audiences, but also to use the space as a working space, which was then and is still one of the biggest needs of the artistic and cultural scene in Belgrade, the space, the working space. So in this communication, we managed to create a kind of loose model of the space that would be available for very different artistic practices, for all kinds of people, all kinds of organizations or artists or initiatives, and so on and so on. From then until today, the space has gone through various various phases that were led by an intensive collective thinking and working on the model of the space, led by the idea of creation a space that really responds very concretely to the needs of the users.
Yeah. Can I ask you something, Marijana? If I understand correctly what you say, we have here a city, so a council, that is actually interested in the needs, at least, so you have to tell us what is the relation to the city, but at the first place, as I understand, you as independent scene, and maybe it would be interesting to clarify what you mean independent scene. So what kind of organizations?
Yes, okay.
Did you self-organize? So that's one question. To come together, you are how many? 10, 20, 50? So, and then we have a city that says, your need is to have a space to share, also to work as an office or a rehearsal space or a studio, but also to share with the audience. We will give you this building that we have and it's not used at the moment.
Okay, the things are quite complicated because we have meeting, we had the meeting of very different understandings of what the independent scene is and should do in a society. So on one side, we had this generally called independent scene. In that moment, it was really a kind of informal initiative of very different organizations and individuals who engaged themselves into advocating for the change of public cultural policies, and this change would comprise a space, new spaces, not one, but new spaces that would be given to these new actors that were extremely important for the contemporary arts in general, contemporary art scene. So I'm speaking about the visual arts, but also contemporary dance and theater and music and many new transdisciplinary initiatives and practices. So this informal group that was, I don't know how many, like, I don't know, 20, 30 different actors, both organizational and individual, that engaged themselves into such a dialogue with the city. In that very moment, at the beginning of this process, the city had some administrators, some people that were very sensible to that. They were sensible because they could see traveling around Europe this kind of new, let's say, new transformations of ex-industrial sites into artistic and cultural venues and places. So for them, it was something very attractive. And that's why they were very open to look for the right space together with us. Once we identify the space, once we identify this need to adapt the space for contemporary artistic and cultural practices, we arrived at the first problem. The problem was, of course, coming from the administration. Their next response was, okay, we really want to give this space, but we cannot give it to you as independent organizations, as an alliance of independent organizations, because we have never done something like that. So we don't have this kind of practice or let's say legal frames. So we will give officially the space to an existing public city center, cultural center, and then they will give it to you. They will let you do what you want to do. This created immediately a structural problem, because this city cultural center was officially managing the space for around 7 or 8 years, but without a real interest to develop this place. On the other side, they decided to choose who can use the space. They had some ideas how this model will work. This model was never implemented fully, because on one side, they were not capable to do that. On the other side, there was this resistance from the users to follow their model. And the users that came in, and my organization that deals with the field of contemporary dance was one of them, they immediately started to kind of dismantle the model by allowing all the others who needed the space to come in and use it, and use all the infrastructure that was available. I will cut the long story short, because it's really like there were many phases, as I already mentioned. At some point, when we could see the change of the city governments that were going from bad to worse, and from the model, from the administrations that could at least establish some kind of dialogue around the issues that were important for us, to those who absolutely ignored us and who had their own ideas, and the ideas based on the policies. I forgot to change the images. Sorry, this is the entrance to the place. Their policies were based on the ideas of cultural industries, meaning using the public infrastructure for the different activities and contents that would bring some market value to those spaces. And when they started to insist on this model, the growing resistance started to take a shape in Magazine, and the new strategies and models that were defined with the time, with the years, through the debates of the users. And this is exactly what we are speaking about today. Yeah. A Magazine is a model that is self-made, made on the internal discussions and on participation of all users who, in different ways, contributed to this model that we have today.
Yes, I want to ask you more things, but because it's interesting, because at the moment in Greece we have a very, very similar example that the current government tries to impose, which is again using a building which was not used until now as, they call it a cultural, groundbreaking cultural whatever, and they actually mean entrepreneurship, turning management managers, making the artists managers, and they think that this is the idea to do. But yes, but it's another thing is we have a city that is interested in the first place, that is in contact with abroad and what happens, which is very positive, to recognize the need, but then they don't know how to implement it, and they actually implement it in the wrong way. They don't allow artist-led initiatives. And then you said that at the moment, this public initial cultural organization that was running the space is out. Yes. And you actually self-manage it, the organization.
Exactly.
Can you talk to us more about the model and how many you are? How does it work? Bettina, sorry.
Yeah, I had the same exactly question. What's the model now and how was it shaped through this process?
So the model that is the result of the collective thinking and working is actually based on the premises of self-management, meaning that everything that happens inside and around the center is decided by the users. This, let's say, assembly of users is, of course, something that changes with time. There are people who are permanent users, meaning that they spend more time there and do more things there. But there are also those who come and go, who just spend some time, do some work, and then they leave. But whenever somebody is active, he or she is member of this assembly. This assembly meets every month, so once per month, and discusses the different topics related to the functioning of the center. This collective work has come up with this model that we follow. It's a kind of constitution, which is, of course, always or every now and then questioned or improved. But there are some basic principles that need to be followed. For example, there are certain values or principles that we follow, like everyone who works there has an autonomy of the artistic work. It is a space, a working space, but also a space for presentation. But we established, let's say, 3 levels of priorities of the programs that are organized there. The first priority is the public programs. Then we have the working production kind of processes, and then finally we have smaller programs or events that are for smaller groups, like meetings, like some trainings, and so on and so on. This is how we distribute the use of the space. Another important tool of running the space is an open calendar, where the users can check out all the available spaces and they can book the free slots of time, explaining what they will do, who will be there, and what kind of priority program they do. According to this, we generate the monthly or weekly program of the space that can be seen by the audience, by the public, different audiences. Then we always talk about cooperation, which means that different cooperative procedures or programs always have a priority, and the space is organized and run in a way that the cooperation is a necessary tool. We also go for a financial transparency, which means that all the grants that are gotten for the space are transparently spent, collectively decided upon, and reported to the assembly openly and regularly. We don't have any, official managing body. It is governed collectively by the assembly, but every month we have a coordinator that is not chosen, but a person can apply, let's say, every month for this position. And at the very beginning, this position was a voluntary position, but since some time, the coordinator gets like a fair monthly payment for this work. And his or her duties are to be a communication person for new users, to take care that all the procedures are taken care of, or if there are people who want to become the members of the assembly, they go through this coordinator and get to know all the rules and explanation of about how the center works. We also one of the important issue or elements of the work of the space is that it is not only an artistic space, it's a kind of social center, social and artistic center, where many important social and political initiatives also find their own place. These initiatives deal with people who are forced to leave their homes by the state, forced by the state, or people who make, it's called solidary kitchens, so people who make solidary meals for other people who cannot provide the meal, and so on and so on. And I'm mentioning this because it creates this very specific atmosphere and context in which arts and culture meet with very strong political engagement of different initiatives. And that's one of the reasons why the city government, current city government and some previous governments actually don't want to establish any dialogue with us. Just to mention that Magazine is in the region which was very close to the railway and bus stations, meaning that the huge flux of migrants was coming in this area. So Magazine was also a place to give them shelter at some points.
I was, now that with that comment, and thank you for everything you said, I was wondering what was the reaction of local communities? Did they support this collective decision, artist-led project?
Yeah, so we live we live we work surrounded by the people who live there, and there is like an effort right now to establish closer relations with these neighbors. We live in good neighboring like atmosphere, but they are following follow what we are doing from close, but it's not that there is participation, let's say, of the neighbors, and this is exactly something that needs to be further worked on. There is a group, I didn't mention that we have working groups who deal with different issues in the center. We have also a group that has to work on this collaboration with the neighbors, and that's something to be done in the future. We also have the groups that take some specific tasks, and these groups work for the whole community, like a PR group that takes care that all the programs are properly communicated with the audience. We have like a photo and video documentation group. We have a group that deals with different kinds of repairs in the space. We don't most of the things that is done in the space is done by the users themselves, with this working group with more specialists, let's say, people that are more skilled to do. You could see in the photos also some of these works and restoration of the place that we did ourselves.
Yeah. I have some questions. One is that you said that with the neighborhood you try to establish a closer relation, but so the audience at the moment is the audience from the cultural scene, from other neighborhoods of the city, etc. Okay. First, one more specific about practicalities question, and one maybe of content. You talked about grants and you talked about this public program financially. How does it, who asks for the grants? Because you're not, and also your relation to the city currently, because the building is still given by the city, right? It's not.
Yes.
And so one is, what is the relation currently to the city? Two, financially, for example, this public program, does it have ticket or is it free? And who asks for the grants? And the third one, maybe if you have estimated more or less how many people use, or how many organizations, like the numbers, so that we understand a bit. And maybe we can stop sharing. Did you go? Because then we can see you. No?
Okay.
Because I think you finished, no?
Yes, I just I saw the pictures that I had. Okay, so many important questions. First, when the public cultural center left this endeavor, let's say, the city government had the intention to kick us out. And when we realized that, we kind of gathered our forces to create a public campaign that would draw attention of the cultural audience and then also broader audience to the fact that the city is threatening and that we might be kicked out. We created the campaign on the basis of the number of users and number of programs that magazine offers to the culture of Belgrade and Serbia, and we collected or motivated some different public figures to speak in our favor, and created a public campaign that was also in the media, and the result was that the city withdrew from this intention and left us in the space. They tried this once or twice again, but we used the same strategy to defend the space. But in the terms of legal frames in which we operate, actually nothing changed. We are there illegally, practically. They never wanted to start a dialogue about a possible solution of this situation. They started an active ignoring us all the time, but in the same time left us in peace, which we used to improve the space, to improve the infrastructure of the space through different collective actions, and to make it even better and easier to be used by more and more users. Today, I think that the magazine has more than 150 different users, individual and organizational, producing around 1,500 different programs per year. Of course, last year it was much less because of the pandemic, but even then some activities were taken in magazine. It is very important to understand that the users, permanent or temporary users, come from very different fields, not only artistic fields, but also fields like there are art students and other students. There are even some University of Arts programs that happen there. We have a gallery, very nice gallery space that is offered to the students and art schools to use. We have also, for example, projects being produced there, but commissioned by public theaters. So we fulfill very different needs of a wide cultural community in Belgrade. It is not a legal entity, as I said, but how we fundraise is another part of our strategy and model. We mostly use the infrastructure of a legal entity that is called Association of Independent Cultural Scene of Serbia. So it's a formal association with around 80-something different independent organizations from around the country, but that has the office in Magazin. And this office was established exactly at the moment of crisis in 2014-15 with this attack of the city government, when we invited them to come to Magazin to establish the office, and since then they really use as fiscal sponsor, let's say, for the cultural center. And we fundraise with them, or they are, let's say, the main force in this fundraising
The
process.
public program is free for the audience?
This is a must, and this is a principle of the center. Everything that happens there has to be free.
Okay.
So all the programs, all the trainings, all the workshops, everything is free. There is, of course, a possibility for donations, and we have this, like, let's say, invitation for the visitors to donate, and it works quite well, I would say. We use this, let's say, not income, but donations, as well as donations of the organizations who use the space to cover the basic costs of cleaning and maintaining of the center. For bigger investments, like maintenance of the space in a more substantial way, we use fundraising, so the funding.
And the artists that do the work there, they have to find funding from somewhere else, so they are paid.
No, the people who use the space for their own programs, be it individual artists for their exhibitions or organizations, fundraise for their work.
Yes, so the space is offered for free, and the rest they have to. Yes,
exactly. They fundraise for producing the programs, but they do give these small donations, and sometimes they use their programs and their let's say funds to donate a more substantial amounts of money for some specific need of the space. Like I can, for example, contribute with some technical equipment, so I buy it through my program, but then I give it to magazine.
Okay. And then my other question, and then I'm done, which is more content-wise. It sounds a miracle what you describe, especially when you say that it's 150. I mean, it's too many. And I wanted to ask you, according to your opinion, being one of the first members and being there for many years, as I understand, what is the secret of success? So what are the principles? Are there specific things that made it successful for you? What would you say that they're the main principles that make it work?
And if I can add to the question by Danai, I would also ask, if not successful, but also the sustainability of the whole thing.
That's what I call success also.
I mean, it's not a secret. It's actually the fact that people need to practice working together. They have to practice solidarity, and through this practice they get aware of the fact that being responsible to a community is an empowering principle. It's a principle that creates communities. I believe that what we do in magazine is possible only because people, when people get engaged, and when they understand that being responsible to common resources that are needed for everybody, that are needed by everybody, and that need to be taken care of by each individual, can empower these communities and make them grow, but grow in the sense of being able to do more and better things for this same community. So that's why I put as a title of this talk for myself, like solidarity and responsibility to the commons as principles and basis for sustainability. And for me, magazine is an example that shows that it is possible to make a sustainable community in whatever field once people are engaged on this principles of equality and solidarity, where they, through practice, by practicing this communal way of working and living, can actually grow as a community.
Yeah, I mean, we were also discussing with Bettina before we meet, and we're saying, well, if it's a coincidence that this example takes place in Serbia, which has another history or experience in the practice of socialism, and how it would be done in a more Western, more capitalist context, that is really individualization has went maybe further. I don't know. Yeah, there are examples, of course, in other countries, but the specific model is quite interesting. We have one question from people watching that asks, that says that all the things you say are very interesting and there are wide-ranging projects and programs running in the center, but how has the pandemic affected this? You also referred very shortly. What is your operational mode the last year?
Well, at the very beginning of the pandemic, the place was closed. We decided to close it down because everybody was anyhow locked down at home and so on. But already in May, when we started to go out again and meet again. In Magazine, we created some rules that needed to be respected so that people do not get in crowds, but that, however, they can use it for work. And it also coincide with the initiative of creating a solidarity fund, which was initiated by some organizations from Magazine and also joined by other organizations around Serbia, which was again a response to the non-responding state, to the state that had absolutely nothing to offer in those crisis moments. So again, Magazine was a place, I mean, indirectly, but through our work and these organizations' work, a place of solidarity. And in this moment, it's open. We could even organize public events, respecting of course, these pandemic rules in closed spaces. But it was the space where people were happy to come back to, exactly because it gives us this, how to say, model of communication and of being together that is precious in our personal lives, as well as in our professional lives. So yeah, I mean, it's we are just finishing some new works inside, improving the conditions in the space, and we are happy to start the new spring season there.
So at the moment in Serbia, in Belgrade, the theaters are open, the cultural spaces are open, and with restrictions, of course, and with measures they operate. Because here the government is also totally indifferent about that. For 1 year, they have closed culture and they don't even look into it. So it's really admirable how much they really don't care.
Yeah.
And they don't look into other countries. I mean, it's amazing what is going on at the moment in Greece. We have one question from the audience. I don't know if Bettina, you have something. We should.
No, that's why I was thinking, stop stealing my questions. I was about to ask about theaters and the cultural sphere and how it works now in Serbia, but I think it's all answered.
Yeah.
I haven't seen another question. Do you?
There is one question that asks, maybe you mentioned things, maybe somebody followed later, but let's see if there is something new we have to add there. So the question asks if there is a limit for the groups of people who want to make a reservation. Is there some kind of priority for visitors so that more people or groups can participate, or the calendar is always open and they can book as many times as they want?
Yes, there is some kind of balance that needs to be established. As I said, when we speak about booking the calendar for specific activities, then we have those three priorities, like public programs, then we have like working processes, and then finally closed programs, meetings, and closed trainings. So these are the priorities that needs to be followed. Then when it comes to the balance between different actors, it's also important. The calendar is available for all people to see and to know that, for example, they cannot use, I don't know, know by heart these specific rules, but you cannot use more than, I don't know, 8 hours in the dance studio per week, because there are so many users that need this space, and so on. So there are certain rules. When it comes to the audiences and participation, if I understood the question, right now in this pandemic situation, well, it's on the organizers to take care never to take in more people than it's
I don't think it had to do with audiences so much. It's more the internal organization. For example, yes, could I go in and book all the month for my presentations? You know, what is the limit?
No.
Yes,
there has to be a balance and availability for everyone who is there, who needs the space.
And the limit is 8 hours per week.
No. It's just I just gave one example for the dance studio, but there are other more specific rules that are public for the users, and the task of the coordinator is to kind of follow this and make sure that the rules are respected. Although people do respect the rules, and that's the key actually of the functioning of this model.
Of course.
I have another question since we have a few minutes. I was wondering whether some of you, the ones that started the whole project, had done something like this before, or was this the first thing? So was there a previous experience of collectively sharing spaces, of going into a building that was the government's building and was not used? Or was this the first time that all of you came together and, you know,
there are several, let's say, elements of the answer in this answer. First, we do have this collective experience of self-managed socialism, or self-management in the socialism. So somehow this attitude towards the common good, the common resources, is somehow part of our culture, although it was oppressed and is being oppressed by the neoliberal ideology that we live since 30 years now. There probably have been such experiments here and there, but none has come to this level of being a successful example. This successful example is the result of a process. So it was not something that we just, came up with and then we did it. No, it is still changing. It is still being requested, evaluated through many different forms of discussions, debates, work, practical work, and so on. And that's the value of it, because by doing it, by being part of this process, you are, as an individual, of course, always changing yourself. And that's, I think, the biggest value of this specific case. And then I could say for myself that I have been, actor of several different initiatives that base their work on such principles of horizontal organization, self-management, solidarity with the colleagues, and so on. And that's the way I believe you can only work in the public sphere, not necessarily culture and arts, but really in the public sphere. And I have learned a lot through these processes, and for me, that's the only context I can work in my professional life, because this professional life has nurtured my personal life. And I believe that this kind of processes are extremely emancipatory for every individual, because you learn a great deal about a society through such experiences.
It's an admirable, for me, example of commoning. You know, what's exactly what the characteristics you say, an ongoing practice. And in this frame, I wanted to ask you, what are the main problems? Like the negative things, just to not glorify, or difficulties.
Yeah, of course. There are, I can say that this process that I've been talking about almost for an hour has a lot of difficult moments. So I would answer it this way, because every process has difficulties and has its ups and downs. And these difficulties are mostly manifested in, let's say, moments of conflict between people, of conflict between different ideas and approaches. But this is, again, at the end, something positive, because these are the moments of learning. And when you go through a conflict, believing that you do something to learn about how to work, how to function better, then at the end, it brings you a knowledge that is useful for yourself and for the collective you are in. The negative elements could also be this situation of precarity, of permanent insecurity. As I said, magazine is not legally stable, because it's like, it could be theoretically kicked out any moment. So this moment of precarity or unstable situation is a negative part of it, but in the same time, it makes us always be ready to act, ready to, get together or make a movement in the larger context, so that bad things can be prevented. So these are, let's say, for me, some of these minus moments that we live by developing such a commune or community, but it's part of the game.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Bettina, do you have something?
Yeah. No, just I feel it's important to always say that there is a process, that it's ongoing and ever changing, and that it takes time.
Yes.
And that of course there are negative aspects, but then still this is the example. This particular example is a successful and hopeful example.
Yeah, and this whole the whole experience actually really empowers people, and they know that it's possible. They live this possibility, which make them then stronger to advocate for it, to fight for it, to share it also with other people and other contexts. And that's part of this sustainability, let's say.
We have a comment from the audience saying that thank you for sharing, and that they hope this is recorded, which is recorded and will be uploaded on the YouTube channel from Support Art Workers.
Yes. And it also stays on our page. The video stays because
Facebook
live stream at the moment. We are going close to our end, and before we finish, maybe it makes sense to reverse the questions asking and ask you if you have any questions for us for what we do with Support Art Workers in Greece.
Yes, exactly. I wanted to ask you, like, to just explain a bit what Radical Voices, Radical Actions is doing right now. Like, what are the current fights and struggles, and what is the general situation in which you are immersed?
I don't know, Bettina, if you want to go. I mean, Radical Voices, Radical Actions, it's a series. It's one of the many things we do as Support Art Workers, and it relates to the second. We have two main aims as an initiative. The one is to try to keep visible forms to the current demands of the cultural sector in Greece. So really react as strongly as we can, collaborate with the unions and react against governments total indifference towards our sector for a year now. And so that's, let's say, in terms of time, that's the short-term aim. But we also have a longer term aim, which is to try to contribute or to open discussions that relate to the design of some kind of cultural policy in the country, which is non-existent at the moment. And until now, no government and no Ministry of Culture was actually really interested in it. And these dialogues, as we said in the start of our talk, relate to getting in contact with colleagues from abroad and trying to see what is going on and what could be useful for us. So it's really an exchange with outside the borders of Greece. I mean, we are a smaller society, you know, you too, you know, it's the relation between the margins and the center, you know, the Northern Europe, Western Europe produces culture and we look, but it's also a solidarity thing to really discuss and see what could happen, what is going on, to get ideas and exchange. That's what we want to do with this action. And until now, all the suggestions have been very interesting.
Yeah. I hope you will continue to mobilize so many people, more people, and to get into some kind of dialogue. Although, like, making dialogues with this kind of governments that we have sometimes is really problematic. Even, you know, approaching them with this kind of policies is horrible.
Yeah. I mean, dialogue means something. So not
I think
necessarily the meetings.
More important is the dialogue among ourselves, within our scenes, with our colleagues, than with this kind of shitty, governments. Yeah.
I think we have one last question, but it has been replied in relation to the local communities and how you work. And if there is nothing else, I think we can come to an end to this wonderful discussion, and to this bright example, we could say. And hopefully we will meet each other again. And
yes,
in Belgrade or in Athens. I mean, we're close.
Yes,
I hope so much that we will meet. I can't wait to start meeting my colleagues from outside of Serbia. And you are very welcome to come to Belgrade and come to Magazine. It's really a place worth of visiting. It's not far. And the moment you feel free to travel, come to Belgrade.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Marijana. Thank you.
You're welcome, and
thank you for the rest.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.
Ευχαριστούμε που ήσασταν μαζί μας.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.